Okay, I'm skipping all the niceties. I'll put that stuff in later. We're recording. So you just you sent me this piece and I thought it was really great and needs some tweaks. And then you sent me a string of emojis today. And then you told me I just threw you down the staircase. So talk to me about because I thought it was being nice. Talk to me about what you
You were, man. You're always nice. It's just me. I think the dialogue doctor today will be more of a psychiatrist or something to treat my illness. Or
so Eric, tell me how it felt to spend so long on this piece and then to have somebody tell you that you don't need half of it. No, so do you want to go big to small, or you just want to go a piece at a time?
It felt like falling down the staircase, exactly.
That's funny. Okay, you want to go big to small, or you want to go one piece at a time?
What if I started? Let's go big to small, okay? But I just want to try and tell you what I was trying to do with this to put you in context.
Yeah, go for it.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay. Got my notes because I've been working on this like all day, trying to figure out what I was trying to do.
By the way, it's good. It's really readable. I'm not teasing when I say that. It's a good piece.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, this piece, I've been working on it in my head for like a year or so. And I was building like the story to get to this climax. So one of the things I'm trying to do is that David is in love with Roxanne. Mm-hmm. Roxanne likes him a lot, but she doesn't want to go out with him because when she met him, he was a compulsive liar. And for her and her values, lying is like the worst thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's not lying anymore. He says the truth all the time, but she thinks that he's just saying some stories, when he's talking about fairies or he's talking about people running after him, trying to kill him. Yeah. She doesn't really believe him.
Yeah.
Okay. So there needs to be something in there that she'll be able to see, like the parallel world. She'll be able to see that, oh my God, he was not lying. He is telling the truth.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm following you.
Okay. Second thing is her character. I want her to be a badass. But right now, we're not seeing her that way. Okay. Throughout the next books, we'll see that she's really a good fighter. And I'm hinting to it throughout the book.
Yeah.
Okay. We see that she's very athletic. When she slaps David in the face, he really feels it.
Nice.
And there's always like a phrase that she has that if something doesn't work good, she'll have a talk with that person. Now, having a talk for her means hitting.
Gotcha.
Okay, so as the story progresses in this first book, it happens a few times, like her little brother gets bullied, and she goes to the park, and she says that she had a talk with the bully, and he will never bother her little brother again.
Nice.
Okay, so we're building up. The last scene you looked also when she was in the underground prison.
Yeah.
And she took a steel bar and tried to beat up David with it. Once again, we see that, she's not a damsel in distress.
No, yeah. Yeah, she's pretty aggressive. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make a scene like in Avengers Endgame. When Pepper Potts arrives with the Iron Man suit?
Yeah.
And she just raises the mask and we see, oh my God, it's Pepper.
Yeah.
I just wanted to create a scene like that where she seems like a damsel in distress and she just reveals that, no, this is all an act.
Okay.
And I could take care of myself.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, another part of it is in the theme of the book.
By the way, we should tell all the listeners that we're working on the climax of your book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay, so keep going. Sorry.
I think people would turn off the
I'm
podcast
astounded
now.
anybody listens past 5 minutes anyway. So okay, so keep
So
going. Sorry.
in the theme of the story, David was always alone with his mother. Now his mother was killed, so his mindset is he has to hide, he has to be alone.
Mhm.
And what he really needs is friends and family to help him.
Yeah.
So that's why at one point there, at the end, you see the fairies coming to help him. You see Roxanne that's helping him, his dog also. So just trying to show that he realizes that he needs to have support. He can't do it alone.
Gotcha.
Okay. I was trying also to put like a false ending.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Introducing the next villain.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
So how many books are there in this series? In your
7.
mind? 7.
7, yeah.
And the next villain. So what else were you trying to do with it before I go into breaking it down with you?
Okay. Well, that's about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So in a classic 4-act structure, right? Which is kind of you and I have talked about before. That's kind of what you're writing in the Save the Cat adventure, standard action movie structure, which I love, by the way. That's not like I know some people say that they're like, that's a diss. No, I love it. Like, give me more of that all day. So in that, you have the like Dark Night of the Soul, which you've already had, where like, and then from there, the lead character rallies, and then he faces off with the bad guys one more time, which is what's happening here. We have one final face off.
Exactly.
And he defeats the bad guys. And then there's usually a short 4th act after that. That's like the wrap up, right? Like it's the classic, like Star Wars, they're standing on the pedestal getting medals for some reason. We don't know why they're getting, So, but this is that climax piece before that 4th act. Now, there are no rules, right? Like you can do whatever you want. But I would say that typically you do not introduce new things into the climax.
Okay.
Because if you do, it is called Deus Ex Machina, God in the machine.
Yep.
Where all of a sudden there's this thing that you haven't set up that like appears. So I'm going to walk through the plot real quick, and I do want to get like note by note with you because I think some of the notes are really good. And I think not some of the notes are really good. I think a lot of your beats are really good, and I want to work through those beats.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think you have. I really liked it. Like I think you just need to tweak until you get to the last 4 pages, and then you need to cut. So what happens is David and Roxanne are like on a date, and then they get interrupted by Claire. And Claire says, like, reveals like, hey, I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to catch this bad guy. I'm in it for you, right? Like we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And then Claire gets shot. She dies. And then the chief reveals himself. And he's like, in a very good way. It's very Scooby-Doo, where the chief is like, ha ha ha, I was the bad guy all along. And then they're like, not the chief, right? Like, no, you're supposed to be a cop. And he's like, no, I've been working with McNeil, because McNeil being the known bad guy, because I was a friend of his father's. And so I've always been working with him. Then McNeil arrives, and then McNeil is like, take the girl over there, and I'm going to kill the hero with my sword. This is urban fantasy. Just take the girl over there. And then they have the big duel. The big duel is great. I love it. In the middle of the big duel, the girl turns on the chief and kicks his ass. And if you have hinted to it, that is 100% great. If you've hinted to it, it's not God in the machine. It's 100% awesome.
Okay. I was thinking to make sure that the hints were good, to add some thinking on her part. Usually I don't mix like head bopping.
I wouldn't head hop. I would,
No.
because if you head hop once, you have to head hop the whole book. Whatever you do with point of view has to be consistent. What I would do is some way, like, I think what you're talking about is good. I remember you talking about her as athletic. I remember you talking about her as like beating him with the pipe. I remember that scene and thinking like, oh, this is like the reverse of a damsel in distress, and that she's like beating the crap out of him with this pipe. What shocked me about her wasn't that she's a badass, but was that she's trained. That's what's different. That she's like doing judo holds on this guy. So, or what you do jujitsu, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's jujitsu.
Yeah, she's doing jujitsu.
Very similar, same family.
Yeah. The only thing I would do, if you add anything at all, is earlier in the book, I would have one scene where somebody like grabs her arm, or like, and it could even be your hero, where he like, you know, if they're like in a fight and he's like, no, come back, and he like reaches out and grabs her, then she like twists his wrist.
Okay.
That's all you need, right? Like you just need like one little moment where she shows an ounce of like, I have skills that you don't, that I haven't revealed. Okay. And then when they reveal here at the end, then it's super exciting, right? So the fight kind of takes a turn, and in order to defeat the villain, McNeil, your hero throws him into the Fey world.
Yes, and that's his like his gift that he wasn't able to do before. It's the first time he's able to do it.
His like big, like, you know, right in the, and it's perfect because you've set it up a ton of times, you've talked about it a bunch. It's the fulfillment of a long character arc. It's great.
Exactly.
And then the black things show up that you have also introduced early on, that they show up when there's blood, and they like they like devour the thing like flying piranha. Yeah. And so you get that. It's all great, right? Like the ending there is fantastic. Oh, you also have the dog at one point jumping in and like taking the gun out of his hand. And that's where I wanted this to end. I wanted him to jump back into the real world and walk up to her, and her say, "Where did you go?" And him say, "To the fairy world." And for her to go, "It's real?" Because he's been jumping back and forth. And he's like, "Yeah." And then for him to go, "And you kicked that guy's ass." And for her to go, "Yeah." And then for him to say something like, "I love you." And for her to go, "I love you too." And then we have the kiss and we're out. And then in the fourth act, you can have the giant in the fairy world stomping around, yelling his name. And while he's in the kiss, he can like kind of hear it, right? Like that works great.
Okay.
The problem with introducing, so what you have right now is he kills McNeil, and then another villain shows up that we've heard about but never met.
Yeah.
And then he just starts kicking everybody's ass. And it's kind of like, man, if you're playing the old Nintendo game Mike Tyson's Punch Out and you beat Mike Tyson and you're like, "I won the game." And then they're like, "No, here's a cybertronic Mike Tyson who now you have to fight again." You're like, "Oh no, I won the game." So like that's kind of how it felt at the end. It was like, oh, now so the first option is to hold that villain and those fight scenes for your next book, because you reveal a lot in that fight scene, right? Like they're fighting and your hero gets some blows in and then the villain heals.
Yes.
And that right there could be its own fight scene. And then your hero has to run away, right? Like that, and that is a great plot point for a book where it's like, how do we beat this guy, right? And then you have another one where they're fighting and the villain gets beat up, the giant gets beat up a lot, and David, Goliath, your hero, he learns that this has been going on for generations, and that this is also something that the giant starts talking about how he did this to his grandfather. That is also its own fight scene and its own emotional arc, right? Because that happened, and I was like, oh, I want to hear David deal with the fact that his family's been hunted for generations, right? Like that is a huge plot point that you could base a book around, right? Like there's a giant that heals, that you can't hurt, who's been chasing David's family for generations. We don't know why at the end of this. It's just kind of like, yeah, that's what's been happening. How do you defeat this guy? You can almost see a quest like David and Roxanne going on a quest to find the weapon that's the one thing that can destroy this guy. And then that weapon doesn't work. But what ends up destroying this guy is the community that David's built along the way, right? Like that's a whole book. So I'm reading the second half of your piece and I'm like, whew, this is a lot happening at the end of a book. And it's not a lot in a way that's like, oh, I want to read the next one. It's a lot in a way that's like, I'm feeling cheated, right? Like, because I don't get these huge emotional arcs. I don't actually get to enjoy this villain, right? Like he's just kind of being tossed in as like a second. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So one route is to save him for the next book. You can introduce him after the climax. They kiss, right? A picture like fade to black. And then we come back up with David like walking through the fairy world, you know, trying to, or even he's got Roxanne there, they're walking through it together. And then all of a sudden this giant appears and he's like, I was told I would meet you here, right? And then David and Roxanne escape to the real world, knowing that like if David goes back, that thing is waiting for him, right? Like, so that could be the end of this book in a way that like sets up a like, oh, I want to read that. I want to read the journey of David trying to fight this guy. Does that make sense? So that's one way to go. If you really wanted to raise the stakes of it, David and Roxanne hand in hand, walking around the fair world, the dog's there, they're all happy, they're loving it. Giant shows up, Giant threatens David. David's like, you can't. David grabs Roxanne and is about to jump back into the real world. Giant grabs Roxanne, David jumps back without her. End of book. Now I'm like, oh, I gotta go read the next one. Right? Like, so if you have something of that nature, like that's introducing him in a cliffhanger way that gets me to come back to the next book. Does that make sense? You might have frozen on me. I may have lost you. We'll see if I lost you. We'll find out. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. We'll find out. Let me know when you're there. If you're listening to this podcast and you see that Eric is gone, please talk. Oh, we'll do that. Talk amongst yourselves. World War II and the invasion of Normandy. Which is the best visualization of it? The Longest Day or Saving Private Ryan? Talk amongst yourselves. Don't actually discuss that. Eric's gone. Is he coming back? He's back.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. It's okay. I might or might not edit all that up. So I don't know if you can hear me. I was just talking about myself. So if you want to keep, so one way is just to fade to black, happy ending, everything's great. The next way is to introduce the giant at the end and create some giant cliffhanger with him that makes me want to come back to him. There is a third way, but it requires more writing on your part, which is you add in the book 3 scenes where David sees this thing and runs away from it.
Okay.
If you give me 3 scenes throughout the book where David sees this giant and runs away from it, then at the end here, you can introduce him as like the false ending. Uh-oh, here's the real big bad. But I got to see him, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. We hear about him, but we don't see him right now.
Not enough. I got to see him. And I got to have David encounter him, and I got to have David be terrified of him.
Okay.
Right? Now, that you have a lot happening in this book already, which is appropriate for an origin story book, right?
Yeah.
You have David discovering his powers. You have him learning about his history. You have Claire chasing him because she was in love with his maid. You have a dirty cop. You're introducing the bone seers and like why they hunt giants. Like you got a lot happening, plus the love interest with Roxanne. It's already a full book. Showing me 3 scenes where David's running away from a giant he doesn't understand might force too much into it.
Okay. But I like what you said earlier, just like hearing in the background the giant calling his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, that I like that.
Yeah, and you might not do it like while they're like, have them like walk away, because you're going to have a scene after this scene.
Yeah, of course.
You have to have the 4th act.
Yeah.
Right? Because you got to let the reader know like, hey, everything's okay. And like, if this were a rated R movie, the 4th act would be David wakes up in the morning and Roxanne is next to him in bed, and he sits up and he looks at the clock and it says 2 a.m. and his heart is racing and he's sweating, and then he hears somebody calling his name. And he's like, what is that? And he hears somebody calling his name. He's like, what is that? And then the fairy that's like been like talking to him through the whole book shows up, and she's like, the giant's here and he's looking for you. Right? Like, and then you can like go to black. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So I think think on those options. If you want to go back through and add these scenes where David's being chased, you just have to you have to put them in. Like, the hard thing about adding scenes once the book is mostly written is dropping them in so that they don't interrupt the storyline that you already have going. Does that make sense? I think I lost you again. There you are. Does that make sense? Did you hear that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So it's that, like, you have to be careful if you decide to insert this giant, because you don't want to jam him into scenes that interrupt the current emotional flow of your story. Right? You've crafted this really great arc for David. You don't want to start jamming scenes in there that get in the way of that. Does that make sense? I think I lost you again. It may be me. We might both be spotty today.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. Let's go. Anything else you want to talk about the big picture before we get beat by beat?
No, that helps a lot.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go beat by beat. I love this. Is still working. I like it. You start each chapter with these 2 people talking. Do you, at the end of this, do you reveal who they are?
At the end of the series.
Okay, great.
So at the end of this book, the last chapter will be the Shadow Man that says, okay, I'm tired now. I've said a lot. Let's continue tomorrow. Nice.
I love it. It's very Princess Bride. It's very great. I think I've told you that before.
Yeah.
Okay. Here you've got this short summary. David and Roxanne walked up the damp I'm going to trash that. De la Montagne. I was close. De la Montagne Street.
Yeah.
Looking at the displays of the closed gift shops, laughing at the puns printed on the t-shirts. That's a nice emotional moment that the reader's going to want to see. And we don't need a lot. We just need one. We just need like, they're walking up the street and they're looking at a gift shop, and there's a pun, and Roxanne laughs, and David's what? And she's like, I don't know, whatever the pun is. I'm bad at puns.
Yeah.
But we just need to see that, because it sets the emotional tone for the moment and builds to this like moment where he wants to have a confession. When we get here, I wanted, this is a nice emotional moment. Like you've created this really nice moment here, and I want more of it. So David's hand was fidgeting. Should I grab her hand, he thought, or maybe I should just come out and say it. And then you had race to the slides, Roxanne says. So before he can speak, I just want to hear him stutter a little bit.
Okay.
I want to hear him be like, so I wanted to, and then she can be like, race to the slides, so that like we see him try to connect a little bit.
Do you want to share the text?
Oh, I'm sorry. You can't even see it. I'm just talking about it.
Well, I have it on my other screen, but I think maybe people, if they're on YouTube, might like to see it. Yeah.
They don't want to just hear me talking.
More than our faces.
That's right. Yeah. So then I would let him, so we talked about letting him start to speak here. Oh, sorry. I'm laughing because I know some of the people I work with, I like cut up their stuff. Like there's like every third line that's read. And you said I threw you down the stairs. They're going to look at this first page and they're going to be like, he was so nice to you. Sorry. Because I like left 95% of it. It's really good. But yeah, anyway. I was just laughing at Art at the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
So you have this, originally when you wrote this, you had him shouting and this thought on the same line. You got to keep his inner thoughts on a different line. You got to keep them. So it's like a third character talking. You do really well with the third character talking. And typically you do this. This was just one place that I caught it. That was like, oh, yeah. That's all great. I want one more emotional beat here because it's just fun. Right? Like you create these like really nice emotional moments and just let me sit in them for a minute. You know, like this actually reminded me of, have you watched Stranger Things?
Yes.
Okay. So spoilers for the most recent season. Fast forward like 5 minutes if you don't want to hear this. There's a moment where I don't know any of the characters' names. There's a moment where the redheaded girl,
Max
is sitting by the headstone. And she has already been like pulled back from the void, and her like love interest, the African American boy, is sitting there with her, and they're talking about how this song is so special and how much he loves it now because it's what saved her. And it's a nice poignant moment that you just want to like sit in. And this is one of those. It's a nice moment. It's, it's fun and we just want to sit in it. So just give me another beat, right? Like David's mouth twitched as if he were going to smile, but frowned instead and took advantage of the situation. A tooch, I never thought.
Ouch. I don't know how to read ouch in English, so.
Okay, just an O. Yeah, ouch.
Okay, that's how we write it in French, that's why.
That's really funny. I never thought you were that mean, and then have him say, I'm really sorry. And then like, give it a beat. Like, how could you? I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. And then he can grin. And then he can like reveal that he's joking. But just give us like another, let us live in that. You wrote a really nice, fun moment. Yeah. So just let us live in it. This is another one. I just want another beat between them because it's really nice. And I know you're trying to get to the action, right? Like I can feel you like racing to the action. But I like these like sentimental moments between them. They're really cute. So David, yes, I like you, but I won't be your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Put that his heart sank before the why to help us translate the why. His heart sank. Why? Right? So that we can hear the why as the heart sinks.
Yeah.
You know why. It was just like, so just kind of slowing it down a little bit to give us that like nice moment. Again here, no, that's the same. Here. I want to give her some body language because this is an emotional tone shift.
Yeah.
So like, just give her a little bit of body language here to help us interpret how she's feeling when she says this.
Okay.
She says, maybe not directly, but you disguise them as funny stories. And I can never know, and I never know if I can believe what's coming out of your mouth. Right? She's like leveling an accusation here, and it could be mean, be read as mean. It could be read as like sorrowful, like she really wants to connect with him, but she can't trust him. And the body language will help us see that. So if she's sad, have her look down, right? Have her look away from him. If she's accusatory, have her look him in the eye, right? Like where she's looking is going to determine how we hear this utterance.
Perfect. Yeah. This
was all great. Yeah, so you skip his utterance here. She says, he says, you're gonna think I'm crazy. She says, I already do. And then he says, crazy about you, he thinks. And then she says, what could you say that's so terrible? So he needs to respond to this like I already do, even if it's just body language. He needs to like connect with that. Does that make sense? Yeah, in a way that she's gonna see. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, this we've talked. This is the same. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry I shot you. It was an accident. So like, give me the body language to interpret that, because this moment here with no body language is very similar to this moment here, and that we're having these confessions. But I have a feeling by this one, you wanted this to be like a sorrowful pain confession where she's looking away.
Yeah.
Whereas this one down here, you don't actually want her to be sorry. She's not sorry. She's like trying to get out. She's like, look, I'm sorry I shot you. It was an accident.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
have her like, do like throwing her hands like, it was an accident.
Yeah.
Like, something that like tells us like, oh, she's not serious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Yeah, this is great. You didn't need this. You've already, it's implied. So we can just cut it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And this is just me kind of like cleaning stuff up, but it's all really well written. It's all good. Okay, so I get to this point where they're talking about McNeil and like who she is and all of that. And I got to tell you, these first 3 pages, you really nailed it. It's a great climax. It's really good.
Thanks.
Yeah. What is the scene right before this one?
It's not written yet.
Okay. What's the scene before that one?
I jumped about 15 scenes.
I can tell. Okay.
Because I wanted to write this one.
Yeah.
And I never do that. I always write sequentially.
Yeah. No.
But I really wanted to write this one. So
write what's fun. So you could put in the giant if you wanted to, because you have 15 scenes to write. You can start sticking them in there.
Yeah. But I won't.
Yeah, but you can. Yeah. So now that we've gotten through like the intro to this scene, the first kind of big section, I do just want to note as you plot this out, typically when a hero comes into the climax, they're coming off the dark night of the soul.
Okay.
This is coming off of a false ending. He's confident and he seems to think he's won. So this feels like the start of a 4th act. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And then the chief shows up. So the scene before this is your false ending. The scene before this, he needs to think that McNeil has given up, or that McNeil is gone, or that McNeil has been beat. I would actually have, because of the way you're setting up the chief, in this ending, in the scene before this, I would have the chief putting McNeil in a cop car, making him think that McNeil's been arrested and everything's fine.
Okay.
And that's going to give him the freedom to take Roxanne on a date. Because if he's coming off the dark night of the soul, he's not going to feel free to take Roxanne on a date until the problems are solved. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So we need to give him a false sense of security. So you need to have his dark night of the soul where he thinks all is lost, whatever that looks like. And then he needs to rally. It probably looks like McNeil it being revealed that McNeil has some kind of special thing that's absolutely going to get him caught. And then he needs to take action, and he needs to set some kind of trap for McNeil that's going to get McNeil arrested. And then he needs to feel like I've won.
Okay.
And then when we come into this scene and they're walking hand in hand, he finally feels safe to like date her, like McNeil is, and he feels confident, like I've got this all under control. And then the chief appears. And this is your false ending. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And the only reason I bring it up is because you are starting with this like David confident and fine and dating Roxanne. If you want to keep this where he's not coming out of the dark night of the soul, you have to create something that he did before. The thing about this, the Save the Cat and like character arc, is that the climax in that character arc where you're coming out of the dark night of the soul, the climax has to be instituted by the hero. The hero has to make an active choice to pursue the villain. So every Marvel movie is this way, right? We'll just do the Avengers movies. The first Avengers movie, they have their dark night of the soul when Loki beats the crap out of them on the helicarrier, you know, and then they all meet up in New York, and you have the famous like circle pose where they're like, okay, we are now making the decision to fight back as a team. And then they kick ass, right? Like, and there's still stakes. They still get hurt. Like, it's not a smooth ride, but they have that decision. Second Avengers movie, Ultron, right? They find out he's got this evil plan for what he's going to do with this area. And they have to make a choice. They're all defeated. The Hulk is all messed up, right? Like, he's mentally screwed up. They've had their butt kicked by the Maximoff twins multiple times, but and Ultron has gotten away. But now they're going to make the choice. We're going to go stop it. Even though we're down, we're going to go get him. So they're coming out of that dark night of the soul, making an active choice to pursue the villain. The next one, what was the next one? Was the next one Endgame? No, the next one was the one before Endgame, whose name I've forgotten. They make the choice.
Infinity War.
Infinity War. Yeah. Thanos is coming for them, right? They've been fighting him the whole time. They keep losing. They're getting their butts kicked over and over. They make the choice. We're making a last stand at Wakanda, right? Like, so you have this active choice that we're going to fight the evil at the end. Coming out of the dark night of the soul, we're going to fight the evil at the end. And then Endgame, right? Like, you think that they've won, but they all come home. They learn that they've lost Black Widow, right? So we've got the dark night of the soul. Hulk does the snap thing. It's like, is everything okay? But then the complex is blown up, and they lose the gauntlet, and they're getting the crap beat out of them. And the choice is made by Captain America, right? Like, I'm going to stand up to this guy, even though I'm beaten down and I don't stand a chance, right? Like, but again, it's the hero making the active choice, post Dark Night of the Soul, to take a stand. So this scene is very reactive. David isn't making choices, right? Like, he's being acted upon, which is why you need a scene before this where he makes a choice and he thinks he's won. Right, like, he needs the Captain America stand where he thinks he's beaten his Thanos, and he's all excited, and then he feels free to go out on a date, and then everything falls apart. Does that make sense? And it'll read great, especially if you can get the Chief and McNeil. Like, if you can think that David's taken McNeil off the board before this scene will play really great. Yeah. Any questions about that before we move on to the McNeil conversation?
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah.
The McNeil fight is fantastic. I love it. I love the gunshot. I love the, like, I actually want you to slow this down. Watching Claire die is great. It's so great. I want more pros. You know, I
Okay.
never say I want more pros. I want more pros. So slow it down and give us a good death scene here. Where like, you know, he's her blouse is you know, the stain was growing on her blouse at an alarming rate, right? Give us one more like sentence about how she's responding to it, or like what she's doing, or like have her look at David confused and like sad, like, you know, maybe even give her a visualization here where she's like, what's happening? And then like let her drop and die. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. This is great that you verbalized. I think you wrote one of these and then I wrote the next one, but I like that they're verbalizing their pain there. It's really good. Like I said, I'm a sucker for the big reveal when the chief comes out of the bushes.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, here comes the bad guy. It was really great. You kind of lose David in here a couple times. Make sure we're keeping David engaged.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all good. This was all great. Okay, yeah, and here again, McNeil then appears, and his appearance is fantastic. And I just want to keep him and David sparring with each other. You know, just keeping them like going back and forth. And then keeping Roxanne in here too. Like this kind of big casting where you have 4 characters all working against each other. This is a tough scene to write. You've done a really great job with it, but we just need to keep them a little more active in it. Motion Roxanne with a gun. Yeah, that's a good. This is just me allowing smoothing out, like taking the action and putting it up front so we can see what's happening. Yeah. It's just a small tweak. I loved these 2 lines, so I'm breaking them up so that we can see them both. Because he laughed, it's been too late for years. Being honest doesn't pay the bills. Those are both great. So I want them to like have their own moment in the sun. Right?
Okay.
Like, so he laughed, being honest doesn't pay the bills. Please, she pleaded, it's not too late. It's been too late for years. Right? Like, that's great. I love it.
Okay.
It's got that Stranger Things like close to campy but not campy energy, which is really good. Yeah, this is fun. This is again just me playing with language, but it's all you're doing a great job with it. Okay, so at this point, we're into the sword fight now.
Yeah.
McNeil needs to get a strike in because we need to feel the stakes. Right now, in your sword fight, David just kind of kicks his ass. Does that make sense?
I lost you for a second there.
Okay, so I said we need to let McNeil get a good strike in here.
Yeah, he can't get a strike with the blade because David will bleed. And if he bleeds and he goes to the fairy world, he's going to get eaten alive.
Gotcha.
So that's why I couldn't get him to bleed, you know, maybe a strike, you know.
Yeah, no, I get I like what you're saying about him not bleeding.
Punch or something, but.
Yeah, maybe he misses with the sword and he comes through with a gut punch that David feels. Maybe you could always do the thing where he like swings the sword and David thinks he got him, but he just got his shirt. Right? Like that's a great way. A lot of times in these fight scenes, they show that like, oh no, he's getting close. And this could be dangerous. Did you get that? I saw you jumped away again for a second.
Yeah, missed a little bit, but I got the gist of it.
Okay. Yeah, we just need something. You're right. You can't cut him because if you cut him, it gets complicated. But he needs to be scared. Right now, David's like cocky through the whole thing. You need a moment where he's like, Oh crap.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, he could actually get me here. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the kind of like it gets so close to him, it like cuts off some of his hair, or it like slices his shirt, you know, something of that nature. Um, but we just need to feel,
Okay.
we need David a little afraid. He's afraid for Roxanne, but when McNeil steps up with the sword, at that point, David's like, oh, I got this. So we just need David worried about like, oh, he might
Okay.
actually kill me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roxanne's face was turned. Yeah. So this is, and I didn't know how to fix it. So I'm just gonna hand it to you
Okay.
for you to fix. Roxanne's face was stern, and then there's fury in her eyes. You don't like my boo-boo face? Now you and I are gonna talk. Knowing that this is a repeated line for her, I actually see it now. It's fantastic.
Okay.
So ignore my comment. It's great. Yeah, and we talked about that, and you have, so it's good. This is kind of where I want like this is the big moment where McNeil loses his sword because it gets embedded into something. And
Into the boardwalk, yeah.
Yeah, into the boardwalk. And he almost gets a shot at David, but David throws him off. And then he pushes him to Claire's body, and he gets Claire's gun.
Yeah.
You got to get McNeil's good strike in right before this.
Okay.
So wherever McNeil's going to get a good strike, it has to come right before this, because then when McNeil buries his sword in the boardwalk and almost gets David again, it'll build to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. This was all good. Oh, this is just me wanting to slow you down because I like it. Now, is Tank jumping out of the Fey world, or is he just jumping out of the bushes?
No, out of the Fey world.
Perfect. If you decide to end it without the giant, then she has to ask, where did that dog come from? Right? Like that's something she's got to like reference, right? Like, where did you go? Where did that dog come from? Like, these are all things that she needs to say. Yeah. Yeah, and then this is just me connecting some thoughts together, but I think what you had was fine. I'm just moving it. I'm just rearranging it a little bit. You said, you see, he's not my dog, he's my friend. And to be more accurate, he's not even a dog, he's a hellhound. The emotional core of that is he's my friend.
Yeah.
So we want to land on that emotional core. You think you have all the answers. He's not a dog, he's a hellhound. And he's not my pet, he's my friend. Right? Like, so to bring that like emotional core there. But I love what you did here with him, like talking about him going to hell and having pissed off the hellhound.
Yeah.
That was perfect. That was such a nice ending to that. Your ending here with McNeil is so good, where the black flies come in again. It's such a strong ending. I want you to feel confident in it, because it's a really nice wrap up to everything you've been working on in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I put those creatures at the beginning, to be able to kill him off at the end, because I didn't want David to actually kill him.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, and you get David remaining the like heroic, I haven't shed blood type hero that we have, which is great. Yeah.
He will eventually in other books, but I didn't want him to go dark right now. Will
he struggle with it?
Yes.
That's a good like book 3 arc. Like, if you go the route of book 2, him exploring his own heritage with this giant and like facing off with a bigger giant, then a great story arc in book 3 is like he actually has to kill somebody, and when he does, he has to deal with the ramifications of that. Like, that's a good solid. Yeah. All right, man. Anything else you wanted to talk about with it?
No, listen, I feel like I went back up the stairs now.
Okay, good. I'm glad. You should. I didn't mean to make you feel like, oh, it's a really good piece. I liked the ending so much. I actually wanted you to end it faster than you did because it's such a strong, like, yeah. And this is, again, I wouldn't delete any of this dialogue. I just put it in another place because your scene with the giant is good, right? Like, the architect told me I'd find the son of Richard Rudolphson here at the same place at this time. Aren't you him? Right? Bobling, you know of me, little man.
Yeah.
You killed my father, right? Like, this is great. It's just not a great ending to this book. So I just hold on to it for your next book. Just put it in a different doc and hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably put it. Yeah, I'll probably put it as another scene in the.
Oh no, I lost you again. Oh, hold on and see if you come back. We'll just wait. Hey, sorry, I lost you again. You were saying you'll probably put it as another scene? Are you back yet? I'll keep waiting.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, I'll put it as another scene in the second book. I'll bring it in. It can't be the end scene.
No.
The final conflict, because I already have something planned there that I need in that final scene for the last book.
Perfect. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, man. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else I can work through with you?
No, listen, the dialogue psychiatrist today was excellent. You know.
Great. I'm glad. Well, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm pumped for you to finish the book because I want to read it. I think it's really good.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Really appreciate your help.
Yeah, man. I'll talk to you later.
Even if I say that you pushed me down the stairs, it's it's all for good.
Yeah. You do jujitsu. You can take it. You're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man.
Thanks, buddy.
I'll talk to you. Bye.
Bye.